Here we are again talking about how your health is in your own hands. And today we're going to talk about how to assemble an expert team to give you some help. Last week we talked about some of the principles that you need to put together a good exercise program, that you've got to train specifically for what you want, that you have to practice the overload principle, that it's got to be somewhat harder than your everyday activities or you're not going to make any progress. The third one being you don't always try to lift harder every day or run faster every day, but you do it in periods, that you go up a ways and then you come back and start a little bit higher and go up a little bit further. And those are usually around 6 weeks periods. And the last is it should be progressive. You should not say, this has got to stop to it and I'm all done. You should keep on getting stronger and faster and more flexible and agile rather than trying to hold still just the way you are. So we talked about those last week. Those are principles of putting together a good program. And there is a rule about exercise. Matter of fact, there are 3 rules. And I'm going to give you the first 3 rules of an exercise program. The first rule is safety first. And the second rule is safety first. And the third rule is safety first. And I want to tell you what I think one of the key links in your being safe has got to be. You need your personal doctor on your team. And this is for some very sound reasons. We're concerned with expertise, and I would consider that you are likely the most knowing and expert person on how you feel on a given day and how you feel about moving through life that there is out there. This is your expertise, what you supply to your doctor, your physical therapist if you have one, your personal trainer, or a nutritionist if you have one. Those are the 4 experts we're going to talk about. But you know where you're at and how you feel. But there are real limits to what you know. I've always felt a little bit sorry for doctors who go to a party and they look around the room and they say, oh, this person's suffering from this disease and this person's suffering from this disease and that person over there is in deep trouble and doesn't know it yet, but I am bound by the ethics of my profession not to just walk up to them and say so. What you want first and foremost from your doctor is to alert you to anything that's going wrong that you don't know about. That's why I have a yearly checkup. And you want to find out, is everything still okay? There are lots of things once you get to my age and even earlier that you don't want to hear from your doctor, but you really do if something's wrong. There's, just to name a few, diabetes. There's loss of balance. There's arthritis and deterioration of joints and the way you walk. There's muscular sclerosis. There are a whole host of diseases and other problems that your doctor should know and be much more expert than you are on. And the interesting thing about virtually every disease that you can name, which includes cardiovascular, pulmonary disease, you name it. If you look at the textbooks, they say you need to exercise. There is not a single one of those diseases that's excluded. The medical texts and the doctors know that exercise, the proper exercise, is really good for people with those problems. The question is, do you have any of those problems? And if so, what you should do about it. Now, you just do not want to launch and assume that everything is fine. You want to look and say, all right, is it safe for me to exercise? And the answer will be almost always yes, if you do it properly. And part of us getting an expert team is finding out what would be enough to do some good and not enough to do any harm. If you're sitting at home wondering, and you go and see your doctor, this is the question you might ask. You could ask, is it safe for me to exercise? But a better question to ask your doctor is it safe for me not to exercise? And then you'll get an answer that will get you moving, maybe. Yes, they will say, I virtually guarantee it. It is not safe for you not to exercise. You're going to get worse, something's going to come up, you're going to end up falling, you're going to end up with all kinds of difficulties. So the key question is it safe for me not to exercise? The answer is no. And then the question becomes, what should I do for exercise? And your doctor is not necessarily the best person to tell you that. Your doctor is the best person to tell you you've got some limitations, if there are any. You know, if you're a 16-year-old and you watch too much television and your doctor says, get out of the house and start running around, fine. Very non-risk statement on the part of the doctor. But if the doctor's job is to alert you to what your limitations are, and those do not mean the limitation of saying, oh, I'd just rather watch television and use the remote. That's not one of the ones that's allowed. So you're looking for some help from your doctor. And this is what doctors say all the time to patients that they see at the end of their annual physical exam or something. Well, you really ought to lose some weight, and you ought to get some exercise, and for heaven's sake, stop smoking. They say this over and over again in one way or another to lots of patients. And this is what the doctor expects from that. This is where you have to begin to take some responsibility for building a team. The doctor expects you to do nothing about it because they know, they've been saying for years, you got to get some exercise and you got to lose some weight, and people don't do it. They give a medical prescription and people don't follow the regimen for when to take the pills. Doctors are profoundly used to being frustrated by patients not doing what the doctor knows is good for them. It's deeply frustrating. You know, it's like having a kid, I guess, that just doesn't listen, goes off and do what they want to do. Remember that, any of you 70-year-olds? So the issue of the doctor's discouragement is very real. It's an occupational hazard. And there's another one that they really get discouraged by. Here's the one that I've had 2 doctors tell me, and I know that more say that to their patients. I just want a pill to make it better. It may be an urban legend, I don't know, but supposedly a representative of one of the big pharmaceutical company came to a doctor and said, "We're really working hard on a pill to help people keep their muscles strong." And the doctor is supposed to have replied, we already have that. It's called exercise. And the benefit of doing it through exercise is you ask something of your body and your whole body responds as a unit. All the things that are supposed to work together start working together better. And the doctors know that, but they also know that a lot of people come in, "I feel lousy, doc, what can you give me?" That's not what you're trying to do. So what I would hope you would do in working with your doctor as the first person in your expert team, the one that knows the kinds of things that you don't know about yourself, is to convince your doctor that you're serious. And there's some ways you can do this. You can go into the appointment that you requested knowing what you do for exercise for a week. You can go in knowing the kinds of things you eat for a week. You can even write them out and say, here is where I'm starting. You can say, this is the amount of time I have to do this. Now, if you watched the last show, you'll find that one of the things that really is required for a good exercise program is regularity. You can say to your doctor, this is the time I've got, I'm going to do this regularly, X number of times a week. It's better to do 3 15-minute sessions, as I said before, and then it's much better to do regular sessions of 15 minutes 3 times a week than to do a half an hour 3 times a week, 1 week, and nothing the next week, and then back to 15 minutes and so forth and so on. The regularity is something that will impress your doctor. This is the time I've got, and I'm going to do it regularly at this time. That will enormously impress your doctor and say, this may be different this time. And then involve your doctor by saying, what would you like for a report of how I'm doing with this? What would give you information that's valuable to you in telling me how to proceed, in giving me advice? And let the doctor make a contribution to it. The more your doctor invests in your trying to do this well, the more committed they're going to be to helping you. You're basically asking the doctor to give you exactly what your doctor wants to give you, good health. And the more convinced the doctor is that you are going to actually do it, and that you're willing to supply the doctor with the kind of information needed to give you good advice, so that he or she goes well beyond lose some weight, exercise, and stop smoking, the more involved your doctor is going to be. So you ask, what do you want from me that will help you contribute to the exercise prescription? What kind of record keeping can I do to get that to happen, to make it easier for the doctor to apply the doctor's expertise? But I would be very surprised if your personal physician, your general practitioner, is going to sit down and say, you need to walk so far, you need to lift this much, you need to do this, that, and the other thing. doctors are not in the business of writing out that detailed an exercise prescription. They are extremely good at referring you to people that are more expert. If you had, for instance, diabetes, and you wanted to set up an exercise program, there are specialists out there in diabetes and how the energy system and the insulin system of your body works that will help you design a program that will test to see how you're responding to the program. There are people that specialize in multiple sclerosis. I mentioned that because a member of my family struggles with that. And that person cannot do the same kind of an exercise program I can do. So the doctor can send you where you need to be to get more expert advice. And the beautiful part about this is, up to a point, that you can get this done from within your insurance policy. It is vastly to your insurance company's advantage to have you be good at exercising. I've told the story about my hip that causes me so much trouble that I was told I would have to have a hip replacement pretty soon. And I don't think I need one now. It's 3 years of exercise later, and it still hurts on a rainy day, but I don't need a hip replacement right now. That's a big saving for an insurance company not to have to shell out for that. So what are 3 things that you can look at to ask your doctor which of these would be a good referral for me? There are, for instance, at Dartmouth-Hitchcock, which is a pretty big place, at least 3 basic kinds of physical therapy sessions that you can get referred to for a baseline. And insurance, if your doctor does it properly, will cover it. There is, of course, the high-powered, doctor-supervised exercise test for people with cardiac and cardiac pulmonary conditions, in which they test for maximums of the amount of oxygen you can take in and what it is safe for you to do without having a cardiac attack. That's a very specialized exercise test, and your doctor can refer you to that if you have high blood pressure or some of the other signs that say maybe this is a good place to start looking for that. Remember the first rule of exercise: safety first. Another one another fairly specialized thing that a physical therapist, in this case a unit at Dartmouth in physical therapy, can test you for is balance and gait and enough strength not to be at risk at falling. They can see and test and find out this is where you're at, and they can give a much more detailed exercise prescription of how to exercise that will make it safer for you to get up out of a chair and move, make it safer for you to go up and down stairs, make it safer for you to walk outside. So that's a second place that a physical therapist and a group with an orientation towards balance and gait and things, strength to walk and do the ordinary movements, they can send you. If you have osteoporosis, if you are starting to have balance problems, we've talked about falls many times, there's a place to start saying, what is